I think that this administration sent a clear signal that they believe that the threat to the homeland was not as significant as what it really is. Janet Napolitano said, we're not going to talk about terrorism, we're going to talk about man-made disasters. That was a mistake. There's enough blame to go around here. The bottom line is we ended up with a bomb on a plane with a detonator ready to go off. That's totally unacceptable.
Joining us now is Republican strategist Kevin Madden. Madden, thanks for being here.
He always does the last name.
When Congress comes back after the recess, are we going to still be talking about the Christmas bomber? Are Republicans going to hit on that issue, or will it be all jobs and health care?
I think it will be part of a larger conversation we're going to have about national security. 2010 is an election year, and in election years, both parties try to make the environment about the contrast between both parties. And I think Republicans are seeing this as an opportunity to post up against the Obama administration, just like David pointed out before, that this is a police action versus a military action and an intelligence action. And Democrats, as being weak and being ineffectual and not being able to govern on these issues.
But we saw politics, and we talked about Gordon John just mentioned that he expected that the TSA, the hold on the TSA administrator probably will be pulled in the Senate and he'll get approval. Right. I mean, we get to this point where we feel safe and all of a sudden politics kind of creeps into national security issues.
Always, and that's one of the things that people look at Washington and actually they have a little bit of a distaste about Washington. But as sure as a dog is going to bark, politicians in Washington are going to play politics. Hello, I think the difference between how they're going to do this tactically is that Republicans are not going to worry about TSA appointments and who's chairing what and who's getting what confirmation. And instead, it's going to be about big things. It's going to be about the fundamental different worldview between Republicans and Democrats on how we prosecute the war on terror.
And turning to 2012 for just a minute, if Mitt Romney moves forward and decides to run again in 2012 as he did in 2008, who is best positioned among the Republicans to stop him? I want specific names here. Is it Palin? Is it Pawlenty? Is it Pence?
Handicapping.
Is it John Thune?
Look,
give me some take as a former Romney
first
guy.
of all, I think it's too early. We don't know. I think the landscape of issues that are going to be facing voters as they go to the polls in places like Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina in 2012 could be very different. But I think that right now the Republican voters are looking for someone to make a case on big issues. Namely, changing the status quo in Washington on things like spending and deficits, who's going to be able to best create jobs, who's going to be able to jumpstart the economy, and then who's going to, again, prosecute a campaign against the Democrats on big issues like national security, how we would handle Iran differently, how we would handle Afghanistan differently. So, I think there are a number of folks out there that are going to make that case, Mitt Romney among them. There are many others that I expect will get into the race, but I think it's too early to really handicap one candidate against another.
I don't think you got any names there, Ted.
That was a long answer saying I'm not going to answer your question.
But let's talk about the party itself, because it's been a difficult year for the Democrats trying to label the Republicans as the party of no. Everybody's gone home for the holidays, coming back, have to deal with health care. What do you think Republicans are hearing at home, and what changes in 2010?
It hasn't been a difficult year if you consider the fact that we knew it was going to be difficult. We took a beating in 2006 and 2008, and we realized that the road back is not an easy one, that you essentially have to go back and learn the fundamentals of where the party stands on the big issues that the American public cares about. So I think right now what Republican voters are looking for is someone to stand up to the Obama administration and Washington as an entity on issues like spending. I have done focus groups in my job in the private sector, and I cannot tell you the physical reactions that you get from voters, Democrats, independents, and Republicans on the issue of spending and Washington kind of seeming out of control when it comes to the growth of government. So I think that is going to be a big issue that anybody looking at 2012, even this administration as they look towards re-election, is going to be taking a great notice on.
And given that healthcare looks like it's actually going to make it through and make it to Obama's desk, assuming that for just one moment.
Assuming that.
Big assumption, but assume it for just a moment. What do you think should be the Republican message in 2010? Should it be a full repeal message, promising that if Republicans are back in power that they would actually repeal the healthcare law, or promise to just simply modify it at that point?
I noticed that many Democrats are trying to bait Republicans into this argument of like, well, would you repeal it? Well, I think that's a rather simplistic argument, and I think Republicans have to have a more comprehensive argument, which is master the unobjectionable, which is that Republicans believe that we should be able to carry across state lines, that we need to do something about rescissions, that you need to do something about pre-existing conditions, and talk about how you're for those and how you want to get universal care and you want to get costs down, at the same time as you point out that that this bill, that this monstrosity that the Democrats put through, is a $1 trillion healthcare reform bill with no reform. And I think that's a message that each candidate can take into the 2010 elections and feel very confident with if you're a Republican.
15 seconds. Your New Year's wish for the Republican Party?
That we focus on growing the party and realizing that independents are the key to winning in 2010.
They're a key every election. Kevin Madden, thanks very much for joining us.
Doesn't it sound so much smarter when I say it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so obvious.
Thanks very much for joining us.
Great to be
Really
with you as
appreciate it.
always.
For Teddy Davis, I'm David Curley. Thank you for joining us as well. We'll see you next time on Top Line.